Cool. Thanks for jumping in, guys. Let's jump right into it. I'll just intro the session quickly, give you the lay of the land, but I'll mostly let Yanilda and Amy do a lot of the talking. As you guys know, over the past few months, really, we've been hosting these sessions where we bring on leaders from sales, marketing, and talents, especially folks who are hiring a lot right now, to jump in with our members, that's you guys, and chat about some of the best practices and strategies that they're using in their jobs every day that can help a lot of folks looking for their next role in sales and marketing. So Yanilda and Amy are TA leaders at Contentsquare, and Contentsquare is hiring quite a bit and will be increasingly so in the next couple quarters, if I remember correctly. I'll let them tell you more about that for a couple of minutes and also just showcase where they're at, how Contentsquare is doing, and what their growth looks like going forward. And then we'll spend most of the call chatting with you guys. You'll have probably about 15 minutes each to just introduce yourselves, share a little about your background and the challenges that you're facing in your own job hunts. And we should have a really fun and hopefully, informative discussion that'll help a lot of people. Sound good?
Yep, sounds good.
So giving a little bit more introduction, of course, we want to talk about Contentsquare, but also, just for you guys to get to know us. So my name is Amy Liu. I have a background in HR. I've been in human resources for about almost 10 years. And I was first in the pharmaceutical industry and then switched into startup and now in this marketing SaaS, marketing technology space with Contentsquare. I've actually was impacted by COVID and I was laid off from my previous company and then just joined Contentsquare in July. So been here for about 3 months and, still trying to get to know the business, trying to get to know the type of talent that we're going after. But very excited to be here with you guys today, talking about Contentsquare and also, providing some helpful tips to you guys. And I guess one fun fact about me is that I love cooking. I love trying different types of food, especially within the Asian cuisine. So definitely really, really love that.
Hello, everyone. So I am Yanilda. I've been at Contentsquare for 9 months now. So I started a couple months prior to the pandemic. So it's been an interesting experience, especially on the recruiting side and hiring side, to kind of see the market change drastically. I've been in the SaaS kind of space or industry for the past 4 years or so. And prior to that, was in the nonprofit world and worked for a test prep company as well. But also, like Amy, have always kind of been in HR and now have specialized in recruiting and talent acquisition. So it's certainly my passion. And then a fun fact about me. So I have a very huge family. And when people say that, I think they're like, oh, it's not that big. But no. So my father has 21 full siblings. And then, and my mother has 8 full siblings. So, and I say full because sometimes people are like, maybe it's a half sibling now. So I have a huge family, so super family oriented. You'll always hear me hanging out or doing something with my cousins. But it's definitely a huge part of who I am. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for the intro. Okay, so just jumping right in to talk more about Contentsquare. We were founded in 2012 in France by Jonathan Turkey. He is our CEO and founder. We actually didn't get our first funding until 2016, and that was our Series A. And then from 2016, within the next 3 or 4 years, we've been getting our funding pretty much every single year. And just recently, during April, May of this year, during the pandemic, we're able to secure our largest funding yet in Series D funding, as you can see, and with many really well-known VCs here, investors here. So very, very excited about that. And I think Contentsquare definitely has a really positive trajectory right now, especially, we're able to land such a big funding during the pandemic. I know that some other startups, some other companies weren't able to secure that. So one of the other big wins that we had most recently was in 2019, we had 2 acquisitions, which is Clicktail and Pricing Assistant. With Clicktail, they were one of our biggest competitors when we were able to acquire them. Now we're all integrated in terms of our features, our solutions, our offices and employees. So, definitely that was very, very exciting for us and a big win. So we have 7 offices across the world. We are global. Our headquarters is in Paris, and our employee size is growing. Our office locations are growing. Our main office here in the US is in New York. So, and we actually had an office in San Francisco, but now we don't have anymore. And sorry about that. And that was, we have a small number of people on that West Coast, but now everybody is remote in the time being. So here's just some key figures that we wanted to shout out. Right now we have about 700 plus clients on a global basis. And what's really awesome is that we have 200 engineers within the R&D space who are always looking at ways to improve our features, our platform. With the total number, as I mentioned before, with the funding, as of now, total is $310 million, which is awesome. We have 10 trillion interactions per day on our digital channels with our clients. And so that is a huge, huge number. And 650 employees all over the world. And we are still growing, definitely getting closer to that 700 mark by the end of the year. And then in terms of customers, we have customers across the globe within 25 countries. So wanted to share this with you guys. And just a little bit more about what we do is that we are a user experience analytics platform. And what we're trying to do is analyze users' interactions across every digital channel so that we can help our clients increase their revenue, conversion rate, and then ultimately that user engagement. And as I mentioned, our platform goes with any digital channel. On here, we do desktop, mobile, and apps. So we're analyzing all the customers' journeys, which is pretty cool. And what makes us exceptional? As I mentioned, we are growing, we're rapidly growing, and you can see that we've gone through really explosive growth. And, from my knowledge, I know that in the beginning of 2019, last year, we only had about maybe 250, 300 people. And due to our acquisition with Clicktail and just growing really rapidly, we are now at 600 plus. So as you can see, that is a huge growth. And this year alone, we opened about 250 positions. And as I mentioned, we are still continuing to grow. Next year, we will probably have more positions open up, which is really, really exciting for us. And also on the recruiting side too, really exciting. And disruptive solution, as I mentioned, right now we're in that user experience space and there's so much opportunity in this space. And I believe right now there's $8 million of pretty much what the market is. And we're pretty much we have the right technology at the right time right now. And hopefully we're able to dominate this market. And of course, we know that there are some other players in this space, but I would say that, right now we're kind of leading and hopefully being able to take over that. So global ambition, as I mentioned before, we are global. We have 7 offices across the world and still expanding. So we really want to become that global leader in this space. Okay. Our product is really innovative, definitely for sure. Our employees are so passionate about our product. And one thing that every time a candidate asks me, can you talk a little bit more about your culture? I talk about core values, but the other thing is that our employees are just so passionate about what we have, and they really believe in us and the product that we have. And as you can see on here, just a few bullet points, we've been recognized as one of the 4 most innovative e-commerce technologies in the world by Gartner. We have been named the 2020 Big Innovation Award winner. And also part of the Next 40, we are one of the most promising French startups. So that's definitely very exciting as well. Okay, and then I will give it to Yanilda to talk more about the culture and core values.
Thank you, Amy. So one of the, I think, really unique things about Contentsquare and what I enjoy about working here is kind of the stage that we're at right now. So I know Amy kind of talked through all of our accomplishments and kind of our growth so far. But we're in a very unique place where we're kind of this mid-stage established startup. So we have processes in place. We've obviously kind of made a name for ourselves. We're pretty well funded, but at the same time, we're just accelerating at a pace where you truly do make such an impact, while you're in your role here. And so that's definitely something that I kind of want to highlight just about our culture. And it's really the impact that you're able to make in just your team, the function, the company overall. And so if that's kind of like something that excites you, I think, Contentsquare, a company like Contentsquare is kind of the place to be. One of the things that we also really value is just coming up with new ideas. And again, we just mentioned kind of the innovation piece, but really, we bounce ideas off each other. We're very much one of our values, which you'll see on the next slide, is create. So we're certainly looking to create and innovate and come up with new ideas and always challenge each other and challenging what's already there. And then can you guys hear this construction behind me? Is it distracting? Because it's distracting me. Okay, great. So that's just one thing that I wanted to highlight. And then if you go to the next slide, so here are our values. So as I mentioned, create is one of them, that fourth one, but we also have just team spirit, so very collaborative environment. We certainly work in partnership and collaboration with each other and with different teams. So I really do enjoy that about working here. And then also uniqueness. So, celebrating differences, obviously being a global company, you just have a different personalities, different cultures, different mindsets and ways of thinking. And so we really do try to embrace that and again, celebrate it. And obviously, in the US specifically with everything going on, I think it's a very crucial time to kind of have that at the forefront, which is, being more open and committed and dedicated to like the diversity and inclusion and that kind of thing. And then enthusiasm is one. I think that kind of energy, if you ever meet our CEO or like watch one of his videos, he's such an energetic person. And so we definitely want to bring people on board who are passionate and bring that excitement to their role. And then the final one that I haven't spoken about is just ambition. So like many other startups, we're always looking for folks who really do go above and beyond, who can roll up their sleeves, be scrappy. And so that's definitely something very characteristic of the way we work and our people here at Contentsquare. And I'll just quickly run through our recruitment process just to kind of give you a bit of an overview. But typically what we do here at Contentsquare is we have the phone screen with the recruiter. So in the US, for any North America roles, it would either be myself or Amy conducting those. And then we, after that point, we usually have a hiring manager screen. It's usually a video call. And then at that point, depending on the position, you might have some kind of assignment or presentation to prepare. That might also be at the end of the process. Again, it varies by position. And then of course we have, final interview with leaders. In between also we'll have some team fit interviews. So meeting with peers or other team members that you might collaborate with. So that's our recruitment process usually. And then just some virtual interview tips. When you hop on a call, or especially a video call, make sure to just turn off all of your computer notifications, just so that you don't have those distractions. Obviously join the interview or the Zoom call a few minutes before, just to test it out and make sure everything's working and you're not having those technical difficulties, or can troubleshoot those immediately. Make sure to turn on your camera and audio. If you're not able to ever, turn that on or whatever it is, just give the recruiter or whoever it is, the coordinator, a heads up, just to make sure that the right expectations are set with the person interviewing you. Be ready to share your screens, especially, this is more specifically if you're conducting a presentation. Obviously now in these days, we no longer have these kind of in-person presentations. So that's just make sure that you know how to do that. I think we're all experts on Zoom at this point. This was really important. I think like 5 months ago, but now I think everyone's an expert. And then just make eye contact. So just don't be distracted by whatever else is in the room. So those are just our quick tips. Hope that was helpful. I hope you got a good idea of Contentsquare and how everything kind of functions here. I know it was a high level overview, but yeah.
Thanks, guys. No, you laid the groundwork, and I think you've really found a sweet spot. It's clear that your technology is appealing and growing. So I'm going to hand it over to the lovely candidates in the room now. Sometimes we'll go ladies first, but today I thought alphabetical order, change it up a little bit. So Crisley, if you are ready, it would be awesome to start with you. And I think the ladies would love to just hear a bit about you and then dig into some of the challenges you're facing, and if particular things about Contentsquare resonated with you. This is your time. Take it in whatever direction that you want.
Well, thank you. Let's see where to start. So, Chrisley, let's see. I was formerly a director of sales at BAM Communications, a PR agency, and then obviously, COVID occurred. So recently kind of just been doing a bunch of freelance work, freelance marketing, and helping people with like their sales efforts. I don't know if this is a question for you all or that you guys may have, but what is the current like sales process like at Contentsquare, or maybe like in terms of, what's the prospecting approach? What is kind of that sales technique? I don't know if that's a question for now, but that's kind of what caught my attention.
In terms of the process, so very similar to what I had just mentioned, we have a phone screen, the hiring manager screen. Now here at Contentsquare, our SVP of sales, who technically isn't the direct hiring manager for the different roles, our AE positions, he's super involved in all of our sales hiring. And so he'll also interview all of our sales candidates joining us here in North America. And then we do have, which is something we recently updated. Once you have that hiring manager screen and then the interview with the SVP of sales, what we have like a committee interview, like an interview panel of 3 folks interviewing a seller or a sales candidate. And on that committee, we have a solutions consultant or like a sales engineer. And then we have 2 AEs. And the reason why we set it up that way, I think we were trying to be more efficient, move people along the process, not have so many like one-on-one types interview. But as a seller, the whole, you're expected to be able to present and in front of a group of people and be able to, work a room and, really quickly get to know your audience. And so for us, it's almost like a test of how do you handle yourself when you have these 3 folks kind of coming at you with questions, though we obviously don't try to frame it, in this kind of intimidating kind of way. So that was the reasoning behind changing it up recently. And then after that step, I think I didn't miss anything, right, Amy? I think the final step is just the mock pitch. So we actually do ask our sales candidates to present a pitch of a product that they are currently selling or have sold in the past. And then in preparation for that mock pitch, you're expected to send out an email as if you were, sending it out to a prospect, and then also sending a follow-up email. So really kind of testing those written communications and how you set up and frame the conversations beforehand, and then actually vetting you out and assessing you throughout the pitch, which is usually about 45 to 60 minutes. And then that follow-up email afterwards. So that's kind of the entire process. In terms of our sales method, I mean, I'm not an expert, but we use the Challenger quite a bit. I know the team always talks about that. And even as we build out our interview process for our sellers, using some of those competencies and testing for that. I don't know, Amy, if you have anything more to add, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I would say that, are definitely, regardless of whether you're a high level AE or mid-tier or commercial, you're always prospecting. We have SDRs too. who are helping with the cold calls, the prospecting, but our AEs will have to do the groundwork. In terms of more of the specifics, I'm not able to talk more into that, but I can tell you that because we are a startup, we went through, from 300 people to 600 people. We're still trying to evolve and try to figure out the best sales process for the new logo team. So it's constantly evolving and things are changing. It's just that we're not necessarily in the weeds of that. I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. Definitely gave me a good little insight. Thank you.
Chrisley, I know that for you, you've had a passion for marketing and doing a lot of copywriting and content pieces for quite a while now, even as a seller. So I'd actually be interested to hear, given your obviously Contentsquare is growing and learning and role is still evolving, I'd be interested to hear what the relationship looks like between the sales and marketing teams. And if that kind of background influences your hiring process at all.
Oh yeah, that was the next question.
Get the words out of your mouth. Sorry, Chrisley.
No, it's all good. All good.
Question. Yeah, no problem. So we have marketing teams across pretty much the world, and we have a North America marketing team who's headed up by the director of marketing, and the marketing team and the sales team definitely work really closely together, working closely with the new logo team as well as the existing business team. And in terms of our marketing team right now, it's separated into different pillars. We have a content team, we have a field marketing team. We also have right now trying to create more of an account-based marketing ABM team. And then we also have a marketing associate on the team and designers on the team as well. So we're actually really trying to build out this team right now. And I think, with the sales background, I would definitely say it's helpful, but when we're looking at candidates or talents for the marketing team, we are looking to see if they have any marketing backgrounds. And sometimes we really do look specifically. The strongest preference would be if you have experience in marketing technology, MarTech, things like that. But sometimes it could be open just depending on the type of position, but definitely work really closely with the sales team. Yeah, and I think a lot of teams here in North America, it's more of supporting the sales team. I mean, even here recruiting, we're supporting the sales team. We're supporting the functions are really driving the business and bringing in the revenue.
Okay. So you're saying like with the marketing team, in terms of the content, like I was perusing the website last week. So besides like copy on the website, I'm assuming this is like social content and things of that nature.
Yeah, I believe so. Yanilda, do you want to talk more about the content team?
Yeah, so as Amy mentioned, we have these like regional marketing teams that support those, regional sales teams and or partner with them. And so within those teams, you have a content person. So here in North America, we now have 2 people. So I recently hired a few months ago a content marketer. And so they are more specifically geared towards creating the content and creating that editorial calendar and whatnot, again, specific to their market. Now we do have a global marketing team that we're building out right now. It's more lean. I think right now there's only 3 people on that team, but there is a content person also there. So someone who's more tasked with creating content on a global scale that can be used, across all of our locations. So isn't, specific to a particular market or brand or company that's located in that market. So that's the way it works. And yeah, they'll create content for social, for our blogs, for our website, for different campaigns as well. Like, partnering with, again, their regional marketing director. If they're working on a campaign and need more content, they'll also, sometimes even partner with our data analyst team to actually take a look at, I don't know, say they're writing kind of like a case study on someone or highlighting a particular customer. They'll work with our marketing, with our data analyst team to get data to then, inform them on whatever content they're drafting or creating. They'll work on ebooks, for instance. So it does depend on kind of, whatever that campaign is. But definitely writing content for all our different channels.
Okay. No, thank you. Appreciate it. That was pretty much it at least for right now.
I actually had a couple follow-ups based on a couple of things that Amy said. I think it was Amy. You mentioned that you're looking ideally for candidates who have a background in MarTech, or at least marketing background in general. For a candidate who might have like used a lot of marketing tech platforms and are really familiar with it and have come across a lot of the best practices in their job, but it might not be right there in the job title or in the company. How have you seen candidates successfully frame their past experience to like stand out well to you guys? Do you have an example off the top of your head of someone who did that well?
Well, ever since I joined the space, as I mentioned in the beginning, I came from pharmaceutical and another startup company that was still trying to figure out what they're trying to do as their value proposition. So since I joined Contentsquare, the positions that I've been focused on, definitely majority is sales and some marketing, but we're really trying to focus on people within MarTech. So probably Yanilda will have more examples off the top of her head.
Yeah.
I
Amy, I know Amy, poor thing, when she started the like roles that she was working on or managing were only like strictly MarTech. So she hasn't had much flexibility. Whereas I think I've definitely worked on some positions with more. I would say one of the things that we really look at is like like on your resume, especially, and obviously, when you're on the phone and interviewing, I think highlighting your accomplishments and metrics, I think for us, of course, we're looking for someone who can really add value and make an impact. And so our reservation with not hiring someone who hasn't had experience within our space is, they won't be able to make an immediate impact because the RAM time will be too long. So if you can highlight those things in your resume and then very early on and like kind of hook us, then we'll be intrigued and we'll be like, okay, this person has like, and then for us on the recruiting side, we can make a case. We can already kind of build that case for you, where we know a hiring manager might be like, oh, ideally no, because they, don't come from MarTech. They're coming from like an HR SaaS company. But because, we come ready and with numbers and information that you provide to us with like, hey, but here's what they do. Here are the transferable skills. Here's how they've pivoted in the past between industries, then that makes them more open. And then if you have a conversation with the hiring manager and then they feel like, okay, no, I really like this person, you hook us, and then you can obviously prove yourself throughout the process. So I would definitely say just highlighting your accomplishments, metrics, numbers. I always look at that. I'm working on a director of digital marketing position now, and she's open to people outside, like candidates outside of the MarTech space. But then that's what she's looking for. Like I'll present candidates to her or resumes, and she's like, this person not in one bullet point is there anything around how they increase like SEO or lead generation. Like there's no numbers. I don't see the impact. I don't see the contributions there. So that's just like an example. And then also like with that position, if you're a marketer, you have to, at least on your LinkedIn, kind of show in the past that you were marketing, your company or yourself, and building a brand around that. And so for her, it's a huge red flag when we have these candidates and then she goes into their LinkedIn and they haven't posted in 2 or 3 years. So she's like, how are you a marketer? So it's like little things like that you need to kind of keep in mind when you are looking to pivot into a different industry or space.
I would say another thing, just for me to add value to this question, is a big thing is referrals. So if somebody who is a trusted person in the organization, they refer you and they, really pitch you, it's something that we will really strongly consider when we hire a lot of our candidates through referrals. So if you can try to find some type of connection through LinkedIn, I'm sure that you heard of this before, but really it's pretty important because once they submit you, they're putting you in front of our faces. And sometimes they will even go and, message us, just letting us know to, talk to this candidate. It's really strong. So even if you're outside of the industry, the space that we're in, we're always open to having that conversation because they're coming through as a referral.
That's awesome. And I love the point you made about proving the value, right? And you do that through metrics. But what I love about it is that you mentioned it's a hook. It's really something that you're looking for that transcends industry. It's helping you envision what this person would be like on your team and what they could do for you right away. That's a nice way to frame it, I think. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. I don't want to take up too much time away from Ali, so I'll hand over to her, and you can, do the same, share a little about you, and ask any questions you have.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ollie. I am a marketing and content professional here in South Florida. I also got laid off in June from my marketing role at a digital art space startup. That said, Chris Lee asked a few of my questions I already had, but to kind of follow up on your LinkedIn comments that y'all made, I've always heard, like, yes, if you can get a referral, of course, that's great. Say I'm just, I don't know anyone at your company and I'm just applying the old fashioned way, because it is hard to go like network and hard to talk to people in person. What's some ways that someone could like stand out, like a application, kind of a, not like cold call, but like a, just submitting online?
Yeah. So in terms of, I think outside of submitting applications on LinkedIn, I'm sure that you've probably seen this as well, is a lot of people are starting to reach out to stakeholders within the organization where they think that this position will be related to. So a lot of people reach out to the recruiters, trying to connect with us. And of course, we'll usually take a look at their profile if we see that the titles or something are a fit. Sometimes people reach out to, the head of marketing, for example, if you're applying to a marketing position. So I think that tactic definitely has increased during the pandemic because, like you said, people are not networking in person. So they're trying to leverage LinkedIn as much as possible. And I know that the premium LinkedIn account that you can sign up for 30 days for free, I think that's also something that could be really helpful. But what I've seen in my previous startup is, because we were such a small startup, there were some times when random candidates would email our CEO directly. And I'm not saying that to, do a mass thing with all of the CEOs and send them messages, but they would send a very attractive message about them, short sentences. And I remember my CEO back then would say, hey, can you talk to this candidate? This person said something really interesting. Can you just talk to this person, even though their background may not be related? Maybe we can pipeline them for the future. So it's a good networking opportunity to do things that way. And I think sometimes people are afraid to do it, but why not take a leap of faith? These people don't know you anyway. As long as you're saying something that's appropriate and can be somewhat exciting, you might as well just send the message. So that could be helpful. And with the application, I would say that, echoing what Yanilda has said in terms of doing the accomplishments, doing those achievements, I would say that I've also heard about people submitting recorded videos of themselves, pitching themselves. So, and I know that certain applicant tracking systems don't have that, but if you can somehow submit it into that or linked on your resume to it, I think that's something that can make you stand out, because people don't put in the time to do that. Not a lot of people do. And if you do, you may stand out. I'm not saying that it will work, but you might as well try it to a company where you really want to go to.
Yeah. And like, just to add to that, so I would always say, even when I was like applying to my different jobs, I'm like, looking for a job is a full-time job. Like it just requires so much work. But I think the reason why it does when you're doing it well is because you should somewhat tailor your search and your application to each company, especially if you're really passionate about it, and really interested in the role and in the company. And like, one of the things that I tell people is like trying to tailor your resume to kind of that job description, not lying, you shouldn't lie, because eventually like someone will realize, either in the process or maybe even you joined and then they're like, oh, I was tricked, I was bamboozled. No, but like, I think one of the things that our applicant tracking systems, especially now after the pandemic, are doing, like they're coming out with these new features where we can do like keyword searches, because we're getting such an influx of resumes. Like, luckily Amy and I have an intern who help us out, but like, it's just so hard for us to review every single resume. So it's unfortunate that we're not able to dedicate that time to reviewing every application. That's just like the true, the true story right now. So if if you're looking at a job description and you're seeing, certain keywords really stand out, maybe even applying those and putting that into your resume, just so that if we are using that feature, us recruiters on the back end, your resume will pop out. But then in that case, like, the accomplishments, the metrics, what Amy mentioned, if you can add additional files or links, and one of those is a video or whatever, anything that can help you stand out will definitely help. But I would certainly also emphasize the networking piece, especially like if a company truly values referrals. Like, so if there's a referral bonus at the company, our employees are going to submit you whether you just sent them a message or not, or whether you just sent them a message or they actually know you, just because like there's a bonus in there, like they might make money off it. Yeah. So, I've had our employees will submit a referral. They've only exchanged a few messages on LinkedIn and that's it. And it's their referral. They found out about the company through their maybe promoting our jobs on their LinkedIn. So I would definitely say just like leverage the networking, send those messages, because if the company does value referrals, there's a certain way we have to kind of handle those referrals, even if it is like you're truly not a fit, but you'll have our direct contact. Whereas, if you just apply and we send you a rejection email, you're not going to get my personal email address. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would also add to that too. I think it's important to sign up for job alerts on these different websites that you're looking at, because I can tell you in terms of my approach is when we have a position posted, we're so proactive. That first, not that I'm saying we're not proactive after the first few weeks, but we're looking at every single resume because, we just posted this position. We don't have anybody in the pipeline. We want to submit as many as possible. So we look at all the resumes, but as you get closer to like the 30-day, 60 mark, we're not looking as much because we already have candidates in the pipeline. So if you can apply as early as possible when the jobs get posted, I think that could give you more of a better chance. So that's in terms of my approach. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah. Do you guys have any suggestions for how someone like Ollie might send a message that will encourage someone at Contentsquare, even someone she doesn't know, to refer? Do you get a sense of what encourages your staff? Or, if you have a referral where they just exchange a few messages on LinkedIn, are there any best practices for what those messages should really look like how much guidance she might want to give them, or something like that?
That's a good question. So usually I get messages that say, hey, I'm interested in X position. Well, I'm looking for more than that. Maybe give a really short sentence about, where you've been, and what you know about us. I think that shows that you're interested. I personally don't like getting messages with just, hey, let's connect on this role, or I want to learn about this role. Okay, well, I'm looking for other things other than just that, hey, let's connect. So I think that might be helpful. I think talking about the company is really important. I think that could probably attract more high-level executives when you're like, okay, you really dug through and found a piece of information that is so valuable and you want to talk about it, you want to relate to it, align it to your background and experiences. Typically that would, light bulb goes off and they're like, okay, interesting. This person is really interested in Contentsquare. I would say just, about the company is definitely super important.
Yeah, and I think it's about reaching out to the right person. I know it's hard because you don't really know who the hiring manager is, or it's a little bit of a guessing game, but for us, like the SDR candidates and even AE candidates, they reach out to people in sales, right? They're not going to reach out to someone even in marketing, but like also like in HR, it just doesn't make any sense for them. So I think like figuring out like who's the best person, but like for you, you're obviously it would be someone who's on the marketing team, ideally someone who's in content marketing. And then when you're actually sending your outreach, making it about the job, about kind of, you're like, again, submitting that portfolio. If you have a link to, usually content marketers have, you know, like a portfolio or something with all the different blogs or articles or whatever copy that you've written. So I think, you know, giving them that information early on and figuring out like, okay, who's really like this message and everything I'm providing here about me, and then also about my interest in the company, who's it going to resonate with most? And then also leveraging the second degree connection. This is another thing, AEs are good at this, where like for our SVP of sales, they'll realize like, okay, Matt Elders at SVP of sales at Contentsquare, he's connected with a previous AE that I worked with at this other company. So they'll reach out to that, you know, their mutual connection, and be like, can you intro me? Because, you know, that's also, and then that's usually how Matt will send them my way. They'll be like, okay, so-and-so introed me to this person, have a call. So leveraging the second degree connections too, I think.
Love it. Love it. Ali, if you wanted to ask one more question, I can give you a shot. Otherwise, I'll hand over to Rhythm.
I'll pass the mic.
Cool. Sounds good. Rhythm, take it away.
Hey everyone. So Rhythm Saitha. I've been, just from a work perspective, I've been working in the fintech financial services space for about 7 years plus now. I spent a good number of years in Melbourne, as I mentioned earlier, close to 12 plus years actually. And I'm originally from India, as you might have guessed from my accents. I have a funny accent. It's a combination of India, Australia, and I've been in the US for about a year or so now. I was also impacted by COVID in June this year, and have been sort of looking at different sales account exec positions in the SaaS space. I just just to put it on the table, I do not come from a marketing or a MarTech sort of a platform, but I'm essentially looking at the SaaS industry for any future positions. I guess a couple of questions I had. I guess first for Contentsquare, I had a look at G2 crowd just to see, you know, who are some of your competitors and who plays in that industry. And I looked at quite a few names, which are some are US companies too. I won't mention them, but how does, you know, Contentsquare being a foreign brand, how does it differentiate, you know, itself? And I can relate to it because I'm a foreigner as well in the US. So I have to put in that extra yard to prove myself, you know, whether it's numbers or performance or whatever it might be. So how does sort of Contentsquare position itself to say, hey, we are the industry leader in this, when you have names like Google and, you know, Full Story and, you know, some others?
Yeah, so I would say that with Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, we don't compete with them from my understanding. So
Okay.
when you mentioned some a company like Full Story, and you know there's other
Sure.
I'm not going to name it either, but our I would say that we're leading because really looking at the why user is making the move that they're making on the digital channel is our biggest differentiator. I'm not sure if their platform is also doing the same, but also talking to candidates, I know that some of our competitors have been impacted by COVID as well in terms of going through structural changes. Although Contentsquare has been impacted, we didn't do it layoffs. So I think you know that really stands out. Also that we were able to secure the $190 million, which is huge money, Series C funding. So it really shows that we're going through a really we're really at the right time, at the right place with the right technology as compared to our other competitors. And also we acquired one of our biggest competitors last year with, you know, what I mentioned about ClickTail. So I think, you know, what we have right now is pretty robust, and we're just becoming more and more robust. But in terms of the feature of our platform, of why it stands out, is because we're really looking at the why, and we're telling that story of the customer's, the user's journey. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, like, so in full transparency too, I think we still feel like foreigners as a company. And so one of the things that our marketing team is, and again, we're scaling and hiring people on marketing, but as we are hiring these folks, like one of the things we even mention to candidates and we want to be upfront about is we've had tremendous success, like, you know, with our revenue and our numbers and, you know, with our funding and all that stuff. But our brand awareness isn't quite at the place where it should be given our success. So there is that gap. So we're still very much in the you know, position where we're trying to position ourselves and really make it known who we are. So it's definitely a work in progress. But one of the things that we do highlight now is just like the acceleration, which we mentioned before, is like we were able for 4 years to, I know one of the words we use is like bootstrap, to really, you know, like grow from 1 to I think 80 people or so. And I think at that point we had like 25 or so like huge enterprise customers. So we were able to do that all, you know, on our own. And then it wasn't until 2016 when we started to receive funding. So you see the acceleration, and I think the potential that our investors see in us. I think it's very telling of our product and how good it is. And truly, you know, I've seen our product. I've obviously been in there, and it is just very, one of the things that we say differentiates us most too is the fact that our tool really democratizes data. So in order to use the platform, you don't have to be like this formal data analyst and have this, you know, technical background. So we're really proud of the product we built. Obviously, you know, we've kind of made a splash so far and have had tremendous growth. And so I think, you know, that high growth over the past 4 years, and especially even throughout a pandemic, helps us kind of position ourselves, you know, as like, yes, we are foreigners, but look what we've done so far, and the impact that we've made in the industry. And also our executive, and we're building our North America team, our executive team, half of them are now based in the US. So things are shifting too. And as we're hiring these teams, in all transparency, you know, we're looking at the US first sometimes and hiring those leaders here. So it's shifting too. I think, you know, the ecosystem and locations of where people are at, which
Sure.
is helpful here.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I did not notice on the website when I was going through it briefly that you cater to a lot of different platforms. You're not just looking at the digital marketing team, but you also have a solution for the e-commerce team, perhaps, or the analytics team, or somebody, you know, within that organization who's looking at the user experience. And also, you're sort of industry agnostic. Would that be correct to say? Because it says, you know, there are different industries mentioned on the website.
Exactly. We have like manufacturers, obviously, like the travel and leisure, retail,
right.
Right.
And the reason I asked that question is because, and this is another question, the second question, and this is more related to one of the challenges I'm facing right now. So I come more from, like I mentioned, from a fintech, SaaS, financial services background. And I've mostly seen that SaaS companies are targeting either one or two verticals. They're not really truly industry agnostic. And sometimes they say they are, but they are really focusing on just one area, one vertical per se. I'm just wondering what would be a good idea. And I think, you know, like you did alluded to it earlier in this conversation where you mentioned, you know, it's good to mention the metrics and what you've achieved and see what the transferable skills are. You know, just to make them aware that you can actually do another task as well that you have changed in the past. But like, could you give me a practical example? Like, how has somebody from a different industry moved either in your current role at Contentsquare or in your previous roles when you've hired people? How have they kind of transitioned from one industry to another successfully? And and what has stood out to you and the hiring managers?
So here at Contentsquare, I would say, so the only, like, I'm trying to think of an AE candidate. So she didn't have extensive MarTech experience, but her previous, she was only kind of in the MarTech industry for 8 months, which, as you know, for an AE, like that's kind of like most of your ramp time. So I think for her, it was, again, kind of going back, like she hooked me. Like, so it depends also. I think sometimes it's like a little bit of luck. So if you're working with a recruiter who's open to, hey, I know this is what the hiring manager wants, but I'm going to take a chance, which is kind of like what my approach was. It was like, okay, I know she's not the ideal profile. I know it, but I'm going to have a conversation, because if she was hired at this other company, not having prior experience in MarTech, there's something there. So
Got it.
I think that, so I think in your case, obviously you don't have the MarTech, so it's hard to say like someone who strictly just has nothing. But I think it is a little bit of like, maybe hopefully they're open. So if you can somehow hook the recruiter or the hiring manager to have this conversation with you once you're there, you know, it is about highlighting, you know, the impact that you've made and whatnot, and those transferable skills. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know, Amy, if you have something, but I don't have like a concrete example.
I would say that it's definitely difficult because it really depends on the hiring manager and how flexible they are, because hiring managers are also really strapped down with a lot of goals that they have to meet. And sometimes putting people through training about the industry might be too much of a burden on them, because we resources or trainings that are robust enough to ramp them up as fast. I would say, you know, on top of the luck that Yanilda mentioned, I would say it just depends on the company that you're targeting. Maybe a really super small startup would be open to that, and you'd go there for a year and then wearing multiple hats, and then you go into a larger startup. Or you can target really large organizations who have the resources and training programs in place to want to have that capacity to train people from other industries. They may not care as much. So it really just depends on what you come across. And I think if you keep an open mind in terms of the type of companies that you're applying to, you never know where you're going to land. If you're so specific on, you know what, I'm looking at mid-size startup, Series F, whatever it is, and it might be a little hard for you to really get through to that, and you might become more frustrated. So I think, you know, just going to expand your job search, what might be helpful. And you never know, you know, you sometimes could talk to a CEO from a very small startup and they're like, you know what, this is not for you, but I know a friend or somebody who is looking for this at their startup. So that happens. Right. And I know that it's a little tricky right now because of the pandemic. A lot of startups aren't doing well. And I think, you know, just for you to assess what makes sense for you and your family. So I think that's what I can add.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that both. Thank you.
I'm curious if you guys think this is something that we hear as advice often from other sales and marketing leaders we have on, and it's something that we work with members on occasionally, is kind of starting to try to do the job you want before you have it. So you alluded earlier to having a LinkedIn profile that speaks to your story and looking for activity and someone who can build maybe that brand awareness that you're talking about. I'm curious what you think of a candidate if they've got a pretty solid idea of a new space they want to move into, of actively showing on LinkedIn that they are involved and doing the training themselves, basically, and engaging with the leaders and commenting insightfully on the big players in that space that they're trying to get into. Could that help fill the gap? What would that kind of look like to you guys?
I think, so two things. It depends on the level of the position. If you're going for a high level position, most likely not. Mid-level, junior level, more junior level in that space, people would be open to. I would say, you know, yeah, I would say it depending on the level. And another thing I was just thinking about flew my mind. So I don't know if you have something and then circle back to me.
That's a good point with like the leveling. Yes. I mean, it's difficult now. I think now there are starting to be more of the like networking virtual events, but I know prior to the pandemic, I used to even go as a recruiter to these different networking events to see, and like one, for instance, was Sisters in Sales. So it was like Black women or minority or like underrepresented women in sales. And so I would go to these, I think, for two reasons, obviously to network and meet these females, but also to just gain more, you know, exposure and knowledge and be more informed in terms of like the struggles and what they're facing. And, you know, I'm recruiting, sometimes I feel like sometimes our roles are kind of similar to sales, even though we don't like to admit it. But yeah, so I went for a few reasons, but those were always so, I think, helpful. And I think it's a great networking opportunity again, and shows that you're really kind of passionate and committed and you know, knowledgeable within the kind of this space and are getting acclimated to it. So that was like I think the networking, so any networking or panel events that you can go to, the virtual ones, making the connections again. And then obviously in that you're going to learn more about the space or the role or field. But yeah, it's hard because I feel like when you don't have the experience and you're trying to build kind of your brand or whatever it is, a huge piece of it is going to be the networking. I think it's like, you know, getting a mentor, maybe building a relationship with someone in that way.
I think it's definitely hard, especially also now with unemployment rate just so high. It's so competitive out there. We receive so many applications, and to consider somebody without that type of background trying to switch from a position, I mean, industries, yeah, we look at that too, but if you're trying to switch from like sales into, I don't know, HR, that might be a little hard, you know, just because it's so competitive right now. And I'm not trying to discourage, I'm just, you know, really being honest to see what we've seen in terms of the number of applications coming through, but some of the tricks and stuff, tips that we talked about that might help you. And of course, I know that, you know, I was reading, because when I got laid off, I was also looking at what are some of the ways that I could still get back into HR, or maybe it doesn't make sense for me. What if I never find a job in HR? What am I going to do? I was reading a lot on the internet that people are going back to grad school. People are taking like full on boot camp type of courses to just switch careers. And I'm not saying that you have to do that, but if you're really thinking about switching to another field, maybe try that. But I know it's not the best option, but yeah.
I think it goes back a lot to what you've said about the networking and building up as many of the personal connections as you can, using those hooks to prove yourself and tell your story. And there's a space out there for everyone. It's a matter of time, I think, more or less. Cool. So we're already a couple minutes over, but I would just wanted to say thank you guys so much for jumping on and joining us. I definitely learned something. I hope Crisley, Ollie, and Rhythm did as well. What I'll do after this, I think I've mentioned it via email, but I'll connect all of you guys just so you can follow up and continue chatting if you'd like. We'll get started on editing this video too, and when it's ready to share, we will obviously let you guys know. And yeah, I encourage you to stay connected and keep it going. It was great talking to all of you today. Thanks so much.
Yes, definitely. Add us on LinkedIn. We're happy to connect with you guys. And if you have any more questions and need any interview tips or anything, just feel free to reach out. We will be happy to help.
Yes, for sure. I look at our connections. I mean, I know some recruiters in the space too. So even if it's not at Contentsquare, happy to connect you with any other, you know, hiring managers or recruiters elsewhere.
Thanks, guys. Awesome. Have a whole rest of your day.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.